Welcome to lesson 1.8. Today we'll be talking about climate, biomes, and aquatic ecosystems. So weather and climate, how are they different? Weather is the day-to-day condition of Earth's atmosphere at a particular time and place, whereas climate, that is the average year after year conditions of temperature and precipitation in a particular region. And down here, what factors influence climate? So you do need to know these three factors. The three factors are the greenhouse effect, latitude of the Earth, and transport of heat and moisture by winds and ocean currents. So the greenhouse effect in climate. The biosphere is insulated by atmosphere, which contains greenhouse gases, and the greenhouse effect is heat is retained by the greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. Greenhouse gases include carbon dioxide, methane, water vapor. So kind of think to yourself, is the greenhouse effect a good or a bad thing? So the greenhouse effect naturally is a good thing, right? It's good to have the earth warm. That's kind of why we have such biodiversity within our atmosphere. However, it is a bad thing whenever we do human activities that add to the greenhouse gases, therefore trapping more gas, more heat, and it is raising at a faster rate than what the natural greenhouse effect was intended to do. For latitude and climate, because Earth is curved and tilted on its axes, solar radiation strikes the surface at angles that vary from place to place and at different times of the year. As a result of the differences in latitude and thus the angle of heating, Earth has three main climate zones. So tropical is here in the middle. We also have our temperate zones and our polar zones. You don't have to memorize these degrees or the location. Just be aware that there are three main climate zones. And again, you don't have to memorize the exact latitude. Heat transport in the biosphere. So think to yourself, why does Earth have wind? And you may have discussed this in one of your previous classes. So unequal distribution of heat between the equator and the poles creates winds and ocean currents. Earth has winds because warm air rises and cold air sinks. So here you can see in this diagram, rising air mass, cold air sinking, warm air rising. Biomes. So latitude and heat carried by winds and ocean currents influence regional climate. Ecologists classify Earth's terrestrial ecosystems into at least 10 different regional climate communities called biomes. And remember, biomes are described in terms of their abiotic factors such as climate and soil type, and biotic factors, or living things like plant and animal life. So here is a diagram of the different biomes and the regions. Now this chart, you do not have to memorize this chart. This is purely informational. This is showing the 10 major biomes and how they are classified. So again, precipitation, temperature, soil, diversity, right, by the number of species, trees, and grasses. So don't have to memorize this chart. Just be aware that is how biomes are classified. Now on to aquatic ecosystems. So 75% of the Earth's surface is covered by water. Aquatic ecosystems are affected primarily by the water's depth, temperature, flow rate, and concentrations of dissolved nutrients. Water depth also influences aquatic life because of sunlight. So we have the photic, right? So photic, you're thinking photosynthesis or light. That is the upper layer of the ocean where light penetrates and photosynthesis is possible. The aphotic zone is the lower layer of the ocean where light does not penetrate and there is no photosynthesis. So you're going to see quite a difference in marine life between the photic and aphotic zones. Now for freshwater ecosystems, only 3% of the Earth's surface water is freshwater. Freshwater ecosystems can be divided into three main categories: rivers and streams, lakes and ponds, and freshwater wetlands. Estuaries are a special kind of wetland where the river meets the sea. They contain a mixture of saltwater and freshwater, and they serve as spawning and nursery grounds for many ecologically and commercially important fish and shellfish. So marine ecosystems, again, they are very important. Within the zones of the ocean live a number of different communities. Marine ecosystems include the intertidal zone, the coastal zone, and the open ocean. So phytoplankton, again, this has been mentioned quite a few times in our lesson, but they are very important. They are photosynthetic algae found near the surface of the ocean. They produce 70% of the Earth's oxygen and are the main consumers of carbon dioxide. Now we're at our exit ticket. Go ahead, pause here, try this out on your own, and then rejoin once you are finished. Okay, so exit ticket. So what 3 factors influence climate? Greenhouse effect, latitude of Earth, and transport of heat by moisture by winds and ocean currents. Number 2, what factors help classify biomes? So remember, biomes both abiotic and biotic, right? So both abiotic and biotic factors help us classify biomes. Number 3, what is an example of a limiting nutrient? So this goes back to that matter cycles lesson, okay? So you have to kind of go back. Common limiting nutrients include nitrogen, phosphorus, and iron. Number 4, same thing. This kind of goes back to our matter cycles lesson. So what was an example of a biological component of the carbon cycle? And if you remember, carbon dioxide is taken up by producers during photosynthesis and released by cellular respiration. Consumers eat producers and release carbon dioxide through cellular respiration. And number 5, a bird lives in the hollow of a tree. The bird's presence generally does not harm the tree, but the tree provides the bird with shelter and protection. How would you classify the symbiotic relationship? And this would be classified as commensalism, again, because the bird benefits and the tree is not harmed or helped. So that is it for lesson 1.8. Again, go back, check your vocabulary, and reach out with any questions. Thank you for listening.